I thought I had everything perfectly planned. Months of saving, late nights, skipping small luxuries, all to give my parents something unforgettable. I was 28, working a job I loved, and for the first time in years, I finally felt like I could spoil them the way they deserved. I had booked first-class tickets, five-star hotels, fine dining reservations, every single detail meticulously mapped out. My parents, Linda, 55, and Robert, 57, had always been supportive, always encouraging me to chase my dreams. And my sister, Sophie, 25, well, she was struggling. Jobless, directionless, floating through life like a balloon in the wind. But I never imagined she would be part of the story, at least, not instead of me. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. The airport was buzzing with the usual chaos. People rushing, announcements blaring, luggage rolling over the tile floor. I was practically bouncing with excitement, dragging my suitcase behind me, imagining the smiles on my parents' faces when they saw the itinerary. Then, out of nowhere, my world tilted on its axis. My mom looked at me, her eyes calm, and said, "We've decided to go with Sophie instead." I froze. My heart stopped for a split second. My dad nodded, almost sheepishly, like this was some small, natural decision. My mind raced. Did I hear that correctly? I replayed it over and over in my head. My luxury trip, the one I had dreamed about and worked toward for months, was gone. Replaced by my younger sister, the one who had never shown the same drive I had. The gate agent stopped typing mid-email, stared at my parents, and then at me. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to choke on. Have you ever had someone take what you worked your entire life for, and you couldn't say a word? That was me. Confusion, anger, disbelief, they all collided in one sharp pulse through my chest. And yet, my mom smiled. "She needs this more," she said softly, as if explaining a simple truth. Needs it more? How does someone who hasn't lifted a finger earn something I fought for with every ounce of energy I had? I wanted to scream, to beg, to argue. But I didn't. Instead, I just stared, suitcase in hand, as my dream slipped into Sophie's hands. I didn't know it yet, but what started as a shock at the gate was only the beginning. The tension, the secrets, the surprises that Europe held for all of us would test every assumption I had about family, fairness, and love. And the truth, the truth, was far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The moment I approached the gate, my heart was pounding, not from the walk, but from pure excitement. I could almost taste the croissants and coffee waiting for us in Paris, the glint of the Eiffel Tower, the quiet luxury of our five-star hotel room. I was buzzing. This was my gift to them, my way of saying, "Thank you for everything you've done." I imagined my parents' faces lighting up, maybe even a few happy tears. And then, without warning, the world tilted. "Emma," my mom said, her voice calm but resolute. "We've decided Sophie will be coming with us instead." I stopped dead in my tracks. My mind tried to process it, but it was like someone had thrown a brick into a running stream. Sophie? She's jobless. She hasn't worked consistently in years. She doesn't even enjoy planning trips. And yet, my parents had just erased me from the story I had painstakingly written for us. The gate agent, mid-typing on their computer, stopped completely. Fingers froze above the keyboard, eyes wide. I glanced at them and then back at my parents. Did they expect me to just smile and nod? To step aside while my meticulously planned luxury trip went to my sister? The irony hit me so sharply I almost laughed, though it came out as a bitter, shaky breath. My mom smiled softly, as if sensing my shock. "She needs this more," she said, like it was the simplest truth in the world. Needs it more? I couldn't even form words to argue, to explain that I had spent months saving for this, that I had done everything I could to make it perfect for all of us. My dad just nodded, avoiding eye contact, like he'd already anticipated my outrage. And there I was, suitcase in hand, heart pounding, staring at them in disbelief. Have you ever had someone take what you worked so hard for and tell you it's not really yours to begin with? That it's someone else's turn? I hadn't. And yet, Somehow, my family thought this was the right decision. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, a stark reminder that life keeps moving forward, even when your dreams feel stolen. And at that exact moment, I realized that what started as a shocking betrayal at the airport was only the opening act of something much bigger, something no one, including me, was ready for. But as I watched Sophie beam with innocent excitement, ready to step into my plans, I had no idea just how chaotic this trip was about to become. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and yet as I watched my parents hustle through the boarding gate with Sophie in tow, something strange started to sink in. Sophie wasn't just excited, she seemed almost nervous, a little guilty even, as if she knew she wasn't entirely supposed to be there. She clutched her carry-on bag like it was a lifeline, constantly checking over her shoulder, probably expecting me to erupt in fury any second. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, trying to piece together what had just happened. As they disappeared down the jet bridge, the puzzle started to make sense, slowly, maddeningly. My parents had been quietly helping Sophie behind the scenes for months. They had been frustrated with her lack of direction, worried about her self-esteem, and, apparently, decided that this trip was a confidence boost she desperately needed. My mom had whispered to my dad just last week, she deserves a chance to feel important. And now it clicked. The luxurious Parisian hotels, the dinners, the flights, they weren't just a gift. They were a strategic intervention. I felt a mixture of emotions I couldn't untangle. Rage. Betrayal. Irony. How is it that the sister who hadn't applied for a single job in 6 months got the experience I'd planned for myself? And yet, beneath it all, I could see the reasoning. Sophie needed something transformative, something to shake her out of her stagnant life. My mind raced. Could a week in Europe really make that much difference? Even as I processed this, I couldn't help but notice the humor of it all. Here I was, meticulously planning a trip for my parents, only to have them hand it to someone who barely knew what a passport stamp even meant. And yet, the idea was kind of brilliant in its own frustrating way. I could almost hear myself narrating it to an audience. So, my parents gave my sister my dream vacation, and she didn't even ask for it. But the deeper irony and the real tension was yet to reveal itself. Sophie's excitement wasn't just innocent naivete. It masked a fear, a lack of readiness for independence, that would soon collide with the luxuries my parents had prepared. And when that collision happened, it wouldn't just surprise her, it would shake the entire trip to its core. I had no idea yet how Europe would expose the truth behind my parents' decision, or how much Sophie would struggle to live up to the golden opportunity they had handed her. But what came next, what she faced the moment the plane touched down, would change everything, in ways none of us could have anticipated. I thought the story had ended at the airport. I thought the betrayal, the shock, the heartbreak, that was all there was. But Europe had other plans. When my parents and Sophie landed in Paris, everything looked perfect on the surface. First-class taxi ride from the airport, a suite at the hotel that could have been in a movie, and a meticulously crafted itinerary filled with museums, fine dining, and guided tours. My parents were smiling, Sophie was glowing, and from their photos and messages, everything seemed like a dream come true. But I could sense the cracks forming, even from thousands of miles away. The first challenge came almost immediately. Sophie had never flown internationally alone, never navigated foreign airports without someone guiding her, and had no experience with reservations, language barriers, or cultural etiquette. She was suddenly faced with a reality she had never prepared for. Mom and Dad hovered, doing everything for her, and I realized something important. This wasn't just a luxury trip. It was a trial by fire. My sister, who had coasted for so long, was now learning independence the hard way. I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony. Sophie, the sister who hadn't lifted a finger in months, was now struggling to manage the very trip I had meticulously designed. And yet, a smaller, quieter part of me felt satisfaction. My parents had chosen to challenge her in their own way, to give her something she couldn't fail at entirely. But something that would test her nonetheless. Every day brought a new surprise. Lost reservations, forgotten phrases in French, misread directions. Each minor disaster made Sophie flustered, anxious, but gradually more self-reliant. And my parents? They were finally seeing what I had always seen in her, potential buried under years of complacency. It was both painful and fascinating to watch. And then came the moment that would define the trip. Sophie, who had spent the first 2 days depending entirely on my parents, accidentally booked a train to the wrong city. Panic set in. My parents were frozen, the concierge looked baffled, and Sophie's confident mask slipped entirely. It was raw, unfiltered, and transformative. I watched from afar, my heart pounding, not with jealousy, but with something more complex. What had started as a stolen dream for me had become a crucible for Sophie, forcing her to grow in ways I never expected. And as they stumbled through the streets of Europe, trying to fix a mistake she never would have made without this push, I realized something crucial. Sometimes, giving is not about fairness or planning, but about timing and life's way of forcing growth. But the real twist, the lesson that would change everything, was still waiting for them, and for me, in the next city they would visit. And it wasn't anything anyone could have predicted. By the end of the trip, everything had shifted in ways I never imagined. Sophie, the sister I had quietly resented for stealing my luxury plans, was no longer the same. She had stumbled, fumbled, and panicked, yes, but she had also learned. Learned to navigate a foreign city, to handle her own mistakes, to rely on herself in ways she never had before. My parents, meanwhile, looked at her with a mixture of pride and relief, as if finally, all their quiet encouragements and gentle nudges had borne fruit. And me? I felt something I didn't expect: relief, yes, but also a strange sense of vindication. My gift had taken a life of its own, and in a way, it had worked better than I could have imagined. I thought about that airport moment over and over. The shock, the betrayal, the freeze of the gate agent, the disbelief that gripped me. It all felt so raw at the time. But looking back, I realized it wasn't really betrayal. It was a different kind of love. A love that saw someone struggling and gave them a chance, even if it wasn't convenient or comfortable for me. My parents had chosen the harder path, and as frustrating as it had been, the results were undeniable. Sophie had grown, and in some strange, ironic way, I had been part of that growth even from the sidelines. I still remember the last night of the trip vividly. We were all sitting on a balcony overlooking the Seine, the city lights reflecting on the water, Sophie laughing at a story she had almost botched earlier in the day. My parents held her hands, and I watched quietly, a complex mix of emotions swirling inside me. The anger, the hurt, and the jealousy had softened into understanding. Sometimes giving isn't about the immediate reward, it's about the ripple effects, the unseen impact that unfolds over time. And in that moment, I realized something fundamental. Life rarely unfolds the way we plan, and sometimes the things we think are taken from us are just being redirected to create a bigger story. My luxury trip hadn't been stolen, it had been transformed. It had become a catalyst for growth, change, and unexpected lessons. And maybe, just maybe, that was more important than the first-class flight or the five-star hotels. So I ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have fought for your dream, or would you have let it go to help someone else grow? Life has a way of testing us in ways we can't predict, and the answer isn't always easy, but it is always revealing. If this story made you think about family, sacrifice, or the unexpected twists life throws at us, share it, comment below, and subscribe for more stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and what it truly means to give.